It was not a perfect day for Carolina, but it's a win. Hey, look, we could be Notre Dame or Auburn right now.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Saturday, September 7th, 2024. Welcome into this live postcast edition of the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shaden. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for hanging out with me late on a Saturday night. Carolina is now 2-0. Special shout out to all the everydayers joining us, and of course all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community and the Locked On Tar Heels insiders as well. This episode is coming to you late on a Saturday night here, and what we're going to do is overview Carolina's win 38-20 over Charlotte in a game, frankly, that wasn't as close as the score indicates, but it also didn't feel overwhelmingly dominant either. Just a nice comfortable win. It was 21-13 Tar Heels early in the second half, but Carolina reels off 17 straight to put it away before the backups gave up a garbage time touchdown at the end. And now the Tar Heels, for the third year in a row, are sitting at 2-0. Let's dive right into this. Here's what happens on these live post games. I'll have several just big bullet points to talk about. We'll do an ad read, several more bullet points to talk about, another read, and then we'll get to your questions and observations, see what your takeaways were from this game, as we've got the live chat going as always. Okay, so here's where we're starting first. The biggest storyline in this game for me, and pregame, frankly, is injuries. Good grief. Right before kickoff, we learned that both Kaimon Rucker and Darwin Barlow are not going to play in this game. For Kaimon Rucker, this is a massive, really a surprise for both of them. But for Kaimon Rucker, we had heard nothing about it. We're, expecting, along with Power Eccles, like this is your guy, kind of the heart and soul of the defense in a returning sort of way. But Rucker is in street clothes, and there we go. So what we learned, the official word, and our guy Michael Coe tweeted this out, was that he is having a procedure done on his lower body, which will keep him out, quote, a couple of weeks. Another quote from that Coe posted after the game was that Rucker felt something in the weight room this week, and then it just kind of blossomed out of that. So, here's the deal with the Rucker side of things. If this is going to happen, I guess now's the time you want it to happen, right? You never want it to happen, but in this stretch where you've got Charlotte, NC Central, and James Madison, it's like, before we get to ACC play, go ahead and take care of business now, because the sooner you can get back for ACC play, man, the better shape Carolina is going to be in. And if we're being honest, building depth now against opponents with a lesser overall talent is a great thing. To that point, it gave Tyler Thompson the opportunity to start in this game at the edge. So there's the Kaimon Rucker side of things. We'll keep our eyes peeled for a timeline on that. Coach Brown didn't really give anything post-game, so I'm hoping that at his press conference Monday, we'll get a little more detail about Kaimon. As for the backfield, and on the other side of the ball, Darwin Barlow, the running back transfer from USC, who didn't get many carries. Actually, I think he only had one carry last week, if I remember correctly. And Coach Brown talked a good bit this week about how he wanted to get more opportunities for Barlow, which he obviously would have in this game. But then he is also not dressed pregame. However, Caleb Hood, who was out last week, was in this week. It's nice to have a deep running back stable. And obviously you had Omarion, Hampton, and freshman Davion Bullet Gause as well. But would love to get Barlow back quickly because he brings so much experience. So those were the pregame guys. But then during the game, at one point during the first half, Hampton goes off, Omarion, and in a game where you're expecting him to mix in with the backups a little more, don't really think much of it. But I remember thinking to myself as I saw him go off, man, looks a little bit gimpy coming off there. It's probably just, got caught up. He'll be fine. But then he's riding the bike. Then he goes back to the locker room early before halftime. And it's like, might not be okay after all. Obviously, the word we got after halftime was that he was capable of going, but it's one of those where it's just not like you do not want to risk that against Charlotte. All due respect to Charlotte, we need Omarion Hampton for more important games than this one, and that is defined by conference games. Those are the games where he will be really, really needed. And, oh, by the way, same thing I said about the Kaimon Rucker thing, an opportunity to build in some more reps for your depth, see what you've got in freshman Bullet Gause. And we'll talk more about him in a minute. But boy, what a performance from Gause. But also, Bryson Nesbit. I didn't even really realize it during the first half. And then we get the word coming out of halftime that he's got some sort of upper body injury. That's the definitions we get now, lower body or upper body, without much specificity. So we'll have to wait on that. But he was out for the game, Bryson Nesbit. So that's your most athletic tight end, leaving you with Copenhaver and Jake Johnson, which are nice consolation prizes to Nesbit being out. But then you lose two of your starting offensive linemen as well. Austin Blaskey, your center, oh, by the way, and that's a big deal, went out in the first half. He wanted to come back in, but same kind of thing. The staff overruled him, was like, nah, let's wait. Let's hold off. And then the true freshman, Aiden Banfield, who's been starting on the line each of the first two games, was out for a while, but he came back in the second half as well. So lots of cuts and dings and bruises. Again, we're going to wait to hear probably more official word from Coach Brown early next week to see some specificity on some of these. But for now, man, it was an opportunity to get guys in, but you hate to have to do that. And so thankfully, Conner Harrell held up from a health standpoint, because my word, that would have been bad. All right. Second thing I want to get to, we mentioned that Davion Gause had to come in for Omarion Hampton. And boy, did he do a job. And that was the big question for me, was watching with Darwin Barlow down, who would be first in to back up Omarion Hampton with Caleb Hood dressed along with Bullet Gause. And it turns out it was Gause. He came in. We even had a play in the first half. I think it ended up being one of the triple option plays where both Hampton and Gause were in the backfield together. I think we're going to start seeing more and more of that, especially after what Gause did on Saturday afternoon. So Gause finishes 16 rushes, 105 yards, and Carolina's last touchdown of the game. And the biggest chunk of those 16 carries were in what I'll call a clock melting 6-minute drive that Gause had in the fourth quarter to basically take it from 12 and a half to like 6.5 minutes left in the game. This was a 12-play drive for the Tar Heels. He had 9 carries. 75% of the plays on that drive were Davion Gause carries, including 4 carries that went for 8 or more yards, 11, 16, 8, and 11. And oh, by the way, you saw that one where he hurdled, buddy. That was, just the awareness of a freshman to be able to do. It wasn't like sometimes I feel like those hurdle plays, it's like, come on, man, what are we doing here? This was one where it was clear the defender was coming in low, submarining, and he was like, fine, I'll get over you. So it was very athletic play. This is kind of the running style I expected from him, but reminds me a lot of Omarion, just up and down, north and south. Let's go and let's blow dudes up and keep on trucking. And part of this with Gause, it's really nice because Coach Brown has talked about it. We want to be a running team. And that's what happened in this game. Even with Hampton going down, Gause is still able to help churn up a bunch of stuff. To that end, Carolina finishes with 269 yards on the ground, 490 total offense, a nice run pass balance in terms of yardage gained, many more carries. Again, like the play calling out skewed heavily in favor of rushes, similar to last week at Minnesota. Carolina is doing a great job of controlling that clock, and that's going to be critical all season long. Next, let's go to Conner Harrell. Wow, we're 9 minutes into this thing. We're just now getting to Conner Harrell. His first ever home start for the Tar Heels. And let's just look, me, I always want to be as fair and as even-handed as I can. Conner Harrell had some really good moments, and he had some really not as good moments in this game. Look, up and down, you have to be nervous if you're him, right? Like coming into this game, and I know it's not like an ACC game or anything like that, but still, it's not his first start, but it's his first start at home, and there's something to that. But here's some of what I love. The first series was a 3-and-out for the Tar Heels, if we're being honest, that a lot of that was on the line. Conner didn't have much time there. But after that, 0 3-and-outs the rest of the game. Literally, Carolina took off. They received because Charlotte deferred. 3-and-out, and every other series was not a 3-and-out. That's a consistency you can live with, even if you're not scoring every single time. Just the fact that you're maintaining the ball, staying ahead of schedule, because that's what Carolina, the running team, is going to have to do, is keep on target with getting up to the sticks, and they're doing that clearly. As for passing, Conner was 16 of 29 for 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick through the air. He had some good throws when he had time. Set his feet, stepped up in the pocket, and delivered. Other times, a little bit of happy feet going on. Made a couple ill-advised throws, one of which was picked. I haven't actually gone back to look at the replay. I believe he got hit on that play. But other than that, there was a couple times where he held the ball too long, threw back across his body a little bit ill-advisedly, maybe threw back across the middle ill-advisedly. And only one of them was picked, but there were a couple others that maybe could have been. Had some nice runs. Conner Harrell did finish 9 rushes for 39 yards and a touchdown, had one himself where really he kind of vultured Gause. That was another one where Gause really could have had 2 on the ground in this game. But what I also love about Conner Harrell is sharing the ball around. Let me put it this way. In week 1, Carolina, with Max Johnson at the helm, in the entire first half last week against Minnesota, just 2 different receivers had a completion in the entire first half. It was 4 total. It was 2 to Omarion. I think it was 2 to JJ. That was it. 4 of 10 in the first half. Week 2, this game, Conner Harrell in the first 6 minutes and 17 seconds had already completions to 3 different receivers. That's a lot different. And in totality, 10 different receivers caught a pass in this game. And to the point about spreading the ball around, no one had more than 5 targets. I think that was Caleb Hood that had 5 targets. Let me look back at the receiving. Yes, 5 targets for Caleb Hood, and nobody had more than 3 catches. Both Bryson, Nesbit, and Hood had 3 catches. So, and nobody had more than 58 total receiving yards, and really that was the trick play to Christian Hamilton for the touchdown. So that was his only reception of the game. But Carolina spread the ball around better in this game and did a lot of that. And I just want to say about Conner Harrell too, a lot of people have been asking the questions, do you give Jacoby Criswell a bunch of snaps as well? And my thought for this game was no, absolutely not. If it turns into a 3-4-5 score game, then get Jacoby Criswell a series. And that's what Carolina did right at the end after that garbage time touchdown from Charlotte against the backups. But I was really glad to see that Carolina decided to utilize Conner Harrell for the vast majority of this game. Get him as many snaps as you can, get him as comfortable with his teammates as you can, and see what you got. Now, maybe next week against NC Central, you build out a bigger lead earlier in the game, and then you switch to Criswell a little more and get him some reps as well. But I think you have to be as ready as possible for getting into the James Madison game, which should be the toughest of this 3-game homestand, and then for ACC play. So I'm really glad for how the staff handled the starting quarter or the quarterback snaps in series played. So nice job there from the coaching staff. All right, I want to talk about the other side of the ball, that defense, because yet again, they had a good game. At least playing defense against the run. There's some work to do in the secondary, but we'll talk about all of that coming up here in just a second. And we're going to do that right after I tell you about our good friends from eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits to LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive right now at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, and eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right, gang, we are going to get right back into this. While we do so, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the box score for us, for those of you who are watching this in real time on YouTube. If you're listening back to this later on the audio version, welcome in. So glad that you're here. You can just pull up the box score and look at it elsewhere, but I'll obviously talk us through the whole box score so you can see what's happening. I want to get to talking about the defense. For the second straight week to start the season, Carolina's defense gives up 20 or fewer points. Let's be honest, the starters only gave up 13 of those points. As I said earlier, that last TD with just 4 or 5 minutes to go was all the backups in the game. I want to actually start with the bad. Usually I'm a glass half full kind of guy, and I'll start with the good. I want to start with the bad here. And to me, the secondary has shown, not everyone, but a couple members of it have shown some struggles in coverage, some getting burned deep. Charlotte had several chunk plays in this game where they were able to beat the secondary. Last week, there was a couple of issues of getting the head turned around. This week, there was that, but also just getting beat down the field. And so really curious to see what it is with that. Yeah, I'm looking at Charlotte's big passing plays here, which is defined as 15 or more. They had a 25, 37, 23, 30, 40, 34, 42, and 28. That is 8 different passing plays that were 23 or more yards. And that led to most of Charlotte's good field position. They really couldn't do much else. And we'll get to why when we talk about the good here in the second. But for me, at this point, Carolina just has some work to do in the secondary, and that's okay, right? It's early and we're learning. Maybe some pieces will move around. I'm curious to see what will happen there. We single out people for good things. So I'll just say that Caleb Koss had a couple struggles on the back end today in this game, and hate that for him, but he's a true sophomore. He's learning. And so really curious to see. He started each of these first 2 games at the star position. We'll see if he continues to be able to do so there. But to that end, even though Charlotte got down to the goal line a couple times, and Carolina had that one really great stop, held them to 3. And man, that goal line defense, that's part of what you just got to do in this day and age, is hold guys when they get there. But let's flip from the secondary and talk about rush defense, because Carolina on rush defense has been phenomenal. In the second half against Minnesota last week, just 15 rush yards allowed. In the first half today against Charlotte, just 12 rushing yards allowed. That meant that for that whole game, the second half against Minnesota, first half against Charlotte, just 27 rushing yards in that 60-minute span. And in totality against Charlotte, Carolina only gave up 49 total rushing yards. That was only 37 in the second half. That itself is great. It's just that compared to 12, it's like, oh, all right, well, you gave up 30, whatever. But 49 total rushing yards for Charlotte in this game. That's back-to-back weeks of doing very, very well against the run. Thank you very much. And we'll take that. We want to see Carolina be able to continue to have success on the ground on defense. Also, another success on defense was that Charlotte, just 2 of 14 on third down conversions. Really, really like to see that. Last week, Carolina had 5 3-and-outs, not offensively, on defense. And they're only credited with 4 in this game, but there was a 5th that was like a 4-and-out. Carolina had stopped Charlotte on third down. They went for it on 4th. Carolina stopped it again. It was a turnover on downs. So really, I'm giving them 5 3-and-outs. Just that one of them was like a 4-and-out. So go with it, right? The other thing, Marcus Allen, Amari Campbell tied for the team lead with 7 tackles. Allen had 5 of those as solo tackles. And so Carolina, different leading tacklers each week so far. I mean, Power Eccles, I think, only had 3 tackles in this game. The fact that Power Eccles only has to have 3 tackles is really, 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 it's like, oh, perfect. That's great news. Staying with the defense, Jahvaree Ritzee, who had 3 sacks last week, racked up 2 more in this game. Carolina had 3 total sacks against Charlotte. And so really excited. Coach Brown talked about it after the game, that the issue for Ritzee is just always banged up. And he says, really great to see him healthy right now and out and doing everything he's doing. All right, let's talk about Omarion Hampton, because we haven't been able to really get to him yet, and I want to make sure to do so. My hope for him in this game was that he would have just 15 carries, give or take a couple. You float it down to 12 or up to 17, 18, whatever. That would be fine. But I was looking for that range of 15. Well, we got that. It just wasn't in the ideal way. We already talked about him getting banged up a little bit. He finishes with 11 carries for 77 yards. Obviously, would have gone well over the century mark had he stayed in the game and kept running, not gotten dinged up. But again, not worth it. Through the first 3 drives of the game, Omarion Hampton had racked up 7 yards on just 8 carries. And exactly half of those 8 carries went for 9 or more yards. 4 rushes that went for 9, 10, 22, and 26 in his first 8 carries of the Rock. Really, really good stuff for Omarion. Very, very hopeful that he's okay and that this is no long-term injury issue for him, because if it is, Carolina, I think, is going to be in some trouble offensively unless Bullet Gause is the real deal like he appeared to be on Saturday. But man, you do not want to think about a world for this Carolina offense without some dude named Omarion Hampton. Unfortunately, still no touchdowns for O. Through 2 games, no touchdowns. Remember, he led the ACC in rushing touchdowns last year with 15. In this game, under 100 yards, when would have gone way over with health, frankly. Selfishly, I'm hoping for all those stats for him because I want him to be up in that national Heisman conversation. I'm just not appearing right now like it's going to be. So again, like Hampton is the one I'm keeping my eyes and ears on the most for what is going to be the prognosis of this. All right, let me give you the shady stat of the game. I didn't bring my sunglasses in. Shoot, I'll put my blue light glasses on. How about that? We'll do that instead. You can see my ring lights if you're watching on YouTube. For those who are new this football season or from last basketball season, I always give a shady stat of the game. I'll probably give a different one on Monday's show. But one of the big issues from the Minnesota game was lack of explosive offensive plays. For example, plays of 20 or more yards. Last week against Minnesota, there was one. It was that pass play to J.J. Jones for like 32 or whatever it was. I don't even fully remember. It was like a fake. And it was once Conner Harrell was in the game and then just found JJ wide open down the left sideline. That was literally the only play Carolina had in that entire game for 20 or more yards. And then if we dial it down to 15 or more yards, just 4 plays of 15 or more yards. So we were looking for more explosive plays in this game. Where are we going to get them? Baby, where are we going to get them? Carolina had 6 plays of 20 or more yards in this game. That was 2 more than last week's 15 or more yard plays. What's really neat is there was an even split whether those explosive plays or 20 or more yards were through the air or on the ground. 3 through the air, 3 on the ground, man. That is complimentary football, and you love to see that happening. And then in terms of plays of 15 or more yards this week for Carolina, check this out. Again, last week, 4 of them. This week, 13 different plays that Carolina had that went for 15 or more yards. The thing that you get with Jacoby Criswell that you just weren't going to have with Max Johnson is this explosive big play capability with either your arm or your legs. Not that Max Johnson couldn't run. He had a couple big pickups in the first half and in that earlier part of the third quarter before he got hurt last week. Sure. But Conner Harrell is a more dynamic and explosive athlete. You're just worried more about the inexperience and the inconsistency. Well, yes, Conner had that interception in this game and a couple misguided throws, but no fumbles, no other kind of turnovers. I thought for the most part handled his business really well, and it leads to all these explosive plays for the Tar Heels. Really good stuff. Okay, gang, as we're getting into the back end of the show here, what I want to do is have one more break, and then I want to come back and see what kind of comments and thoughts you have that you want to talk about with this game. So we're going to do that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about our good friends at LinkedIn. I need to get down to it because when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. They help you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those that aren't actively looking for a job, but might just be open to that perfect role. And in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that over 2.5 million small business owners who have used LinkedIn are wearing a bunch of hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. And they're constantly finding ways to make this process more efficient for you. They recently launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making this process even easier. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, welcome back in here to the live postcast edition of Locked on Tar Heels. Carolina 38-20 victors over Charlotte on Saturday afternoon. For those of you watching on YouTube, I've got the box score pulled up for us. I got to take my blue light glasses off because that shady stat of the game is over. All right, here's what we're going to do next is we're going to look at the comments and see what kind of questions, thoughts, and observations that you have. And so if you wanted to get one of those in, make sure that you go ahead and do that right now because we're going to get into them. Travis Hunter fan says, can't wait for the JMU game. I need AJ to join UNC. Man, we got some, I don't know if Travis Hunter fan's a Colorado fan, but what's up, Travis Hunter fan? Glad to see you. Who do you mean by AJ? Tell us who we're talking about. Post it down in the comments and we'll get to it. T-Man, what's up, T-Man? It's always good to see you, our buddy from the Locked on Tar Heels Discord. By the way, folks, if you're not part of that, we would love to have you, man. Great conversation going on all the time. The link is in your show notes. T-Man says, do you think we should have beaten Charlotte by more? And do you think they are really as bad as people have been saying? Here's the deal. Carolina wins this game by 18. The line kind of fluctuated, but around the low 20s all week long, 22 and a half, 21 and a half. I think that was, as of yesterday, it was down to 21 and a half. If Carolina leaves their starters in and doesn't put the backups in for that last offensive series that Charlotte has, you cover this game and you win by, what was it, 38-13 or 25 at that point. And I mean, it could have been more, sure. But I think, T-Man, the thing for me is that Carolina was clearly working on getting more depth in. Carolina I truly believe, were at a game against a ACC opponent or a game that was really difficult. I think Omarion Hampton comes back in. I think Austin Blasky comes back in. It sounded like Bryson Nesbit was out no matter what. And so I think there are different factors that would have led to Carolina winning this game by more if they needed to. So yes, I think they could have and should have won this game by more. But as I said earlier, the score to me was closer than the game actually was. So that's where I'm at with it. And ultimately, you get the win. And I think getting the win and getting the reps for the depth is more important than the size of the win. But I struggle with that, T-Man, to be honest, because I'm very much I want to blow this team out and make them run home to mama because we took all their lunch money. So I get that. Oh, and T-Man says this as well. The throw by Conner back when he ran into our own end zone and then ran forward and completed the pass, did that seem almost a little Patrick Mahomes-like to you? It felt that way to me. I remember that one where he ended up stepping just out to the 2 or the 3, completed that pass. And I think that was the third down, if I'm remembering correctly, T-Man there. It was one of those ones where I was like, it's almost like somebody that shouldn't take a 3-pointer that does, and then they make it. It's like, no. Yes, great shot. It did feel Mahomesian to me, if I can call it that. And I know the commentators were a little I don't know if he should have thrown that. It's like, look, he did it. He found his guy and it's complete. if Mac Brown trusts him to make that throw, then go ahead and do it. And so there's that. There was the play also that where he was almost across the line of scrimmage, and I think we completed the pass play. I was like inside the 5, and ultimately I think it was an OPI on Copenhaver was what it got called back for. And I think a lot of people thought it was because he was across the line. I would have been curious to go back and see that to see if it was or not. It was very close. But like plays like that, it's like, I don't think you get that play with Max Johnson. I think that's a play you get with Conner Harrell. Conner just has to get comfortable and settle in. He's going to. Now he's got a bunch of tape to watch and look at and sit down with the coaches, and that's really big for him. John Sink, what's up, John? We talked about Davion Bullock Gause earlier, but just very simply, John says, Gause played really well today. My man, you are spot on. This was really, really encouraging. And here's why. I meant to say this earlier, and so I'm glad John brings this up. I was really wanting a bunch more reps for Barlow today, who obviously didn't get to play because he's hurt. But here's the good news in it. Guess what happens next year? You don't have Barlow. He's graduated. He's out of eligibility, assuming his injury is not a bad one, in which case he could probably redshirt and come back. But Gause, freshman. I would rather him be the one getting the reps. Develop him. Let him come back and be the dude next year. So, and great running from him. I haven't had a chance to go back and watch like how he did in pass pro, and I don't think he had any receptions, maybe even any targets. Am I thinking correctly about that? No, he did. He had one target, caught it for 5 yards. I can't remember the play, but would love to see him in the pass game even more. So there is that. T-Man also asks, is Kobe healthy now? Kobe Paysor. Kobe got some playing time, didn't start in this game. And so, had that one reception, went for a good chunk. It was like a 16-yard gain. And there was another time that he get called for OPI. There were 2 OPI calls, and I felt like one of them was on him, if I'm remembering correctly. And so we'll have to look. I don't think that Kobe is all the way back healthy, but clearly he's healthy enough to get some reps, not healthy enough to start. I don't know if he would anyway. Starting in this game at the receiver was obviously JJ and Nate McCullum, and was it Culliver? That was the other starting wide. No, Hamilton, of course, was your other starting wide receiver. And so I'm hopeful for Kobe to get back, man, because can be an explosive playmaker and would really like to see that. Hatim Abdallah says, how happy are you right now? NC State is losing big time. Let's check this score together. How bad is Tennessee beaten up on? Oh my goodness. Tennessee, with 5 minutes and 45 seconds to go, is beating the Wolf Puppies 51-10. 51-10. My good grief. That's in Charlotte, right? That game's in Charlotte. Oh, yeah, that's the Mayo Bowl. Thank you, Vols. I love you. My parents live in Tennessee. Obviously, Coach Rob lives in Tennessee. I went to school in Tennessee. So I usually kind of cheer for the Vols. Well, especially tonight. Thank you. T-Man is saying elsewhere in the comments, check the Clemson score. It must be a wackadoodle one too. 66-20 against App. And they're just starting the fourth quarter. They've probably got their 8th string dudes in right now. Wow. Oh, Colorado, Nebraska. Boo-hoo. Okay, there we go. Miscellaneous says, what was your favorite play of the game? That is a good question. I haven't stopped to think about my favorite single play of the game. I mean, on one hand, I'll tell you what it was. It was the double reverse, but not because of the double reverse. I loved that. Who was it? Hamilton? Was that who that touchdown was? Am I remembering that correctly? Yeah, it was Hamilton. I love that he basically had to turn around and field it like a punt. And there was a split. Here's why it's my favorite play. There was a split second because John Copenhaver was coming down right behind him, where I thought he was going to, speaking of Patrick Mahomes, I thought he was going to Travis Kelce style just toss it to Copenhaver and let him run it in, because all of Hamilton's inertia. What's the word? Momentum was not going toward the end zone. He had to like get it back going in the other way and was able to get it across. So I just thought that was hilarious how that all came together. There you go. So last question here, unless any more come in, but this one comes from T-Man. T-Man, this is like your third question of the live. So congrats to you on getting that in. T-Man says, scale of 1 to 10. It's Mrs. Marion. Hello, Marion. Good to see you. T-Man says, scale of 1 to 10. How do you think Conner did today? That's a great thing to think about. And I feel like I'll be able to give a more balanced and thoughtful answer. And I'll probably do that on Monday's show with this. But in real time right now, I'm going to give it a 6. What do you guys think about that? If you're those of you who are watching, let us know in the chat. 6, does that sound about right for you? I think there were good moments. I thought just the one turnover, there could have been more, but there were no real fumble issues, nothing like that. And I was grateful for that. I thought he handled himself well. I thought there were certainly some nerves, but I also think there is, I rate him that low, quote unquote, relatively speaking, because I think there's so much more there. It's because I think his ceiling, his 10 is a good bit higher than what we saw today. And I mean that as a good thing. The fact that I thought Conner did enough today, but man, I'm really, as he gets more and more and more comfortable with his teammates, with the roster, with the playbook, with everything he's doing to bring it all together. So I give it a 6. Let me know what you guys think. We're going to sign off on here though. So you might not get to do it in today's chat, but yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, man, happy day. Way to get a win, Tar Heels. Again, sure, you'd love it to be by a little more, but you will take every bit of this that you can get because a win is a win. 2-0 next week. NC Central coming up. We're looking to move to 3-0, another Saturday game, and hopefully Carolina once again takes care of business. You guys, if you haven't subscribed to the show, please make sure to do so right here while you're watching on YouTube. So, hit that little bell indicator so that you get notified as soon as I go live on a broadcast. You don't want to miss out on that. And also make sure you are subscribed on audio on your favorite audio podcast platform so that you don't miss a single second. If you're not part of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community, we would love to have you there. The link for that's in the show notes. It's absolutely free to join. We're talking in there literally every day. Lots and lots and lots of people. The whole community is like up over 400 now. Come on, man. We would love to have you. Also, there's the brand new Locked On Tar Heels Insider program where you and I can have one-on-one direct text messaging contact. Would love to have you join me and be able to do that. Also, by becoming a Locked On Tar Heels insider, not only do we get to talk back and forth, but you get free access to all of my stats and data and spreadsheets and all that great stuff. I would love for you to hop in on that. The first 14 days, 2 weeks are free to check it out. And then after that, it's just $5 a month. It's a great way to help support our show as we continue to grow. All right, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Tar Heels are 2-0. We'll get right back to it on Monday's show. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk with you again on Monday, but until then, peace.